Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing reasonably well. And we have a couple of questions. And I appreciate anybody sending them in. It's good to have more questions than just enough questions. Here's a question from Mary Lou, Mangion in Ottawa. What can one do to become more interested in energy than in the personality? Wow. Normally what I try to do is write a little bit just to see if I can have some inner thoughts come up that are different than the ones that I might use. And I wrote a little bit about this, but let me try and answer it without looking, and then we can look and see if I missed anything that I might want to talk about. What can one do to become more interested in energy than in the personality? It's an extremely difficult question in a kind of a way. I'd have, for example, every one of you who are listening out there, if you could think about that yourself and realize how important and necessary on these planes that our personality really is. And this is a key thing when you're looking at things from either a distance or close up. Nobody likes looking at ourselves close up too much, but even from a distance, and that I would suggest that is probably the most important thing in our world, trying to attempt to take a look at how we function. Our dilemma is that we're exceedingly vulnerable as individuals. This is right off the top, all the way through our development. We're fairly vulnerable. It starts off really early when we're trying to figure out how to function here, how to make a place, how to make whatever is happening around us make sense. And often it does not make sense because we don't have the wherewithal to make sense with it. So we lean on others and we copy others, carbon copy actually. It's very strange. We remember words that other people use. We remember attitudes. We remember facial features. We remember how our engagement with how they stand, how they act, how they think things should be, how the element of their valuing them becomes exceedingly important to them, of course, because they're trying to survive. And so we copy from other folks these kinds of subtle engagements. By the way, usually without knowing it. So when you ask a question like this, Mary Lou, which is an important question, first of all, we have to understand that we're not equipped on these levels to perceive energy. And when we do, the energy itself that we first perceive is related directly to our intensity in how we make up our personality, how we defend it, how we need so much to be valued in the eyes of others, because the eyes of others are basically our early training formulas. The people, our parental background, or uncles and aunts, or teachers, or whatever it may be. And we do this because we try, honestly, without knowing it, to be like them. So, and while speaking as an adult, you might say, I don't want to be like them. You do that in a way that they would do it. So is this bad or good? Not either one. It's neither bad nor good. It's just how things seem to work. In finding this out, it can be very frustrating for us because we're still using the methodologies that our parental background used without necessarily them knowing they were doing those particular kinds of methods. Of course, when we're young, we assume everybody knows what they're doing. And when we're older, we assume everyone knows what they're doing. And as a matter of fact, half the time they don't. It's when you begin to do those kinds of things on purpose to validate or invalidate others around you or yourself, where it becomes tricky. The focus is on the personality, engaging in a manner that must relate to being valued in some manner, whether positively or not so positively. Both are on the plate. Seldom is there a middle ground, but you can train yourself to be in a middle ground, but your internal structure will be saying, middle ground? What do you want to go there for? Why would you do that? It's not going to give you any kudos. You have to do the ground that's not middle, that's more right versus wrong. And of course, right versus wrong, you end up in a medium that is related directly to self-preservation. The self that you've already believed you've constructed, and you must construct otherwise. This unknown thing in the background shouts out, you will not be considered valuable in the eyes of whoever has brought you up. Invaluable. For example, if you weren't valuable in their eyes when you were younger, you'll never be able to get valuable in their eyes when they're older. That's a terrible thing to say out loud. In other words, they may not be around to change their mind. Ask yourself, when you have an issue, it seems to be very important to you. Can you shift what you consider to be the only answer? Theoretically, you can. At the core of you, you're not even going to bother. You're going to look for reasons why. What you proceed with is more valuable than what anyone else could come up with. We do this unconsciously. Sometimes we do it vocally, sometimes we do it inside. This makes it complicated in our world. Then some joker comes around and asks you to start paying attention to the energy that's already there, that is personalized. Yes, I agree. Because it's part of your personality, physically, emotionally, which is very strongly adept at protecting whatever you come up with, because it's image protection, personality protection. And you don't want to feel as if you're not very valuable. And if you were treated as if you weren't, kind of subtly, you would have to come up with something strong within you to make sure that you were valuable. Then add this unknown to you, you're always valuable. And what you don't realize, and very difficult for any of us to realize, that value is internal. It's not about what you do or what you don't do, or what you believe and what you don't believe. That helps you to relate to the world and the strategies that you use to be liked more than anybody else, and the competition that you engage with to be liked better. It is amazing how we play with that. It's not a game. Living is kind of not a game. I've heard people say it's just a game. That's if you're on the surface. When you're deeper, when you begin to engage and realize that energy that you're first starting to perceive, I'm getting to it there. When you first start to perceive it, is the energy that you are cradling and supporting and using. That intensity is the first thing you begin to perceive. And you do that not because it's good, bad, or right or wrong. You do it because it's there and close to you. It's been your buddy, your friend, your personalization, and the images that you engage with for a purpose of, let's say, from your perspective, making a track on the sand with your foot. Sand of life. And it works for a while. It may work all your life, exactly the same way. It may be very valuable to you. But now, when you're beginning to grow, and this is difficult, you become aware of the energy that you engage with slowly and sometimes quickly. And that is the energy that you have and you use all the time for the purpose of maintenance and engorging yourself with the values you've placed on yourself. It's the way it works. Now, second level. First of all, to learn how to soften down those intensities. To do that, you have to ask for it, meaning ask yourself for it, and be okay with having them softened down. But if you're used to acting in a certain kind of a way, and all of us are, because we're built that way, then it's difficult to allow yourself to shift from intensity for a purpose that relates to self-validation to softer that relates to beginning to be aware of energy flowing through you beyond that intensity. And that becomes softer. This is why it's literally so difficult to allow oneself to gentle down a bit. It makes us feel vulnerable and not as worthwhile as the flow of energy that we usually use and how we use it makes us feel, because we've been using it for a long time that way. It's often difficult for many of us in relationship to being comfortable with being softer, not having a emotional reflexive response that has always validated us from our point of view, so that we can begin to notice the in-depth gentleness and peacefulness that flows in to our system from higher states. Now, I know when I said that, it's partly okay and partly not. And here's where it's not okay. Energy always flows in relative to the way you think it needs to be in you as a personality. And it flows in from the root gonad and solar plexus. And you can be very adept at having a lot of energy flow into you for the purpose of having a personality that stands out from your perspective in the way it should, based on the particular patterns that you've been involved with. In the old system, nothing wrong with it either, you could be aware of tremendous levels of intensity, really heavy energy, until you met with a higher state, and that was called initiation, where it would blow that intensity out of you. But there is a great difficulty with that. It was called initiation of a universal type. The difficulty with it was this: the individual was so vulnerable and so needy, and so felt so bad because they couldn't conjure up the images that were there before to validate them. It felt like as if it was empty inside. It took not years, maybe a couple of lifetimes to deal with that. And so this was considered a very difficult area even to talk about, because many folks talk about having an initiation in a dream. That's maybe helpful. In other words, you have help in a dream from others who might be able to help you. But to begin to be aware and then consider yourself to be great and only help because you were fantastically wonderful in some way, it really means that you don't understand the relationship that you have with existence, from my perspective, of course. Each and every person, everyone, no matter what their belief, is a representative of the human race. In our cause and effect relationship that we have, in our relationship with engaging with others, having a job, making this, doing that, have great value in terms of whether it be finances or ideas in your own mind. It works two ways. If you don't do that, you can feel really bad about yourself. If you do that, you feel really exceptionally good. You're better than everybody else. That is not a relationship with higher states. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be engaged with higher states because you do this. It's an energy thing. And then you learn how to function in it. We can't handle huge inundations of higher state force very well. Now, the echoes of this is if you have a lot of energy flowing through you, you don't really think that it's because you're perceiving the energy that you've always used to ingratiate yourself in a position of high state personality engagement. Many of us have strong wills because we need them, have needed them in our relationship in life. But there is a sometimes very big difficulty dealing with a deeper level of gentleness. Hard to imagine. In other words, everybody should be like you. Listen to it. This is how we normally are, all over the world. There is an assumption that as you see other people, that's how they are. That's a willful orientation. Yeah, fine. But there's one big mistake. They're not like that. They may be a version of something like that. And so are you. But they're not like that. They are a being of consciousness. And they are growing inside of them relative to how they were involved with previous lives and involved with current backgrounds. Not always comfortable. Not always perfect. Sometimes okay. Sometimes okay, but not okay. They don't realize, folks don't realize what they carry inside themselves relative to the personality. That's what makes it difficult for us to perceive energy beyond our close engagement with ourselves. However, it's worth it. The first step is being okay with perceiving the energy intensity that you have used and how you've used it purposefully in your life, and beginning to learn how to change that bit by bit, not a whole bunch. Saying it doesn't mean it works, or it is. Living it is very difficult. The dilemma with any kind of shift or change in engagement with perceptions brings to bear in a personality defensive responses that are strong. And that means they affect areas in your personality that were not affected previously. In other words, you become a little bit more intense because the energy in you is now perceived by you as strong or intense. This is one of the throes, one of the difficulties of growing. And the next phase is recovering, making yourself feel very important because this intensity is strong. Another phase is softening that intensity down and beginning to realize, my goodness, as we grow, we begin to understand broader than we could before, and begin to realize how difficult it is to actually move towards perceiving that softer flow that, by the way, lies within us and is used reflexively almost to engage exactly in alignment with how you have engaged. That's why if you step back and watch it, you can get an idea, but then not judge it, or elevated. Just say, oh my goodness, I do that sometimes. Wow, I do that often. Well, that's different. Oh, what a difference this last couple of weeks has been, or month, or whatever. It's softer. I wonder why. And then here it comes again. Because you're slowly shifting that relationship that you have had with that intensity. You will be more familiar with the intensity and aligned with it quite naturally, not because something's off, just because it's part of how you grew and got to this particular phase. There is a dilemma as you grow. And the dilemma is this. Higher states will truly help you to perceive you. Be careful with this. You will begin to blame other people for their engagement with you, and they caused you to have these reactions, whatever they may be. And that will be, if they're not doing it on purpose, that will be not real. It will be that you are reacting the way you have been taught to react, to be in alignment with how you've been trained. This is very difficult to hear, but in this question, you need to know this to understand that the next step for all of us, wherever we are, doesn't make any difference. Wherever we are in our current engagement with growing, there is always a next step. Infinity. My goodness. Consider this. For us to equate with a loving, compassionate being is something like taking all the aggression about what you believe is true and softening it down to the point where you understand that each and every person, and this is in living life, this is just not a theory, each and every person is in a process of moving through these planes and being in these planes while they're doing it. And the planes itself and all the people in them are affecting them and trying to get them to be like them because they're afraid of shifting or changing within themselves. Why would anybody want to grow? And the answer to that question is because it's a wonderful thing to do. Partly because there is a loving that goes with it. In spite of what you call your enemies, so-called, or your judgments about people, they're just people. And you begin to know that they have love within themselves. And your first reaction is not to be in alignment with that automatically. Your first reaction is to see the flaws in them for the purpose of you being, in a second or a moment, important by seeing their flaws. It doesn't work like that, but it is like that in our relationship with these planes. It doesn't work like that on higher states. Higher states know exactly. You can't fool them. You can fool people here on these planes all the time, anytime. There's a whole lot of politicking that goes on in spiritual clubs and relationships with other people, but you can't fool that higher state. You believe you can. You can't. You fool yourself, though. Is it normal to fool yourself in a relationship with growing? Absolutely true for everybody, all of us. Yeah, but okay then, we are really worthy of growing? Absolutely. One little step at a time. It's wondrous. And there are moments through all that growing, even when you're not doing well, from your perspective, of course, because you have to not only judge others, you'll judge yourself. Or you'll look for alignment with other people. This is quite normal. But you can't fool those higher states. So in looking for real inner growing, don't be afraid to grow slowly and try to understand people. You'll mess up. Try to understand yourself. Hopefully you'll mess up, meaning you won't believe your own newspaper clippings. But believe one thing, you're growing. Slowly, that flow interjects moments of loving. It just puts your head in a spin. Or, another option, you notice it and you stay in it. Never mind the spin. And you don't use that as something that happened to you and therefore you're better than everybody else. We're used to doing that in this world. We play games. I often look back to my own sport games and enjoy a 1 second of realizing, oh, that was a good moment. Don't think I noticed it at the time that much. But nonetheless, it's only a moment. And it was okay. It was good. Give you some joy. Gives you some joy. Let it go. The best you can. It'll still be there. It's not going to go anywhere. It'll be there. And every now and then when you feel vulnerable, you'll bring it up. Notice how many times you bring it up. Or when other people are talking about their stuff. You'll align because you want to be included in their engagement with life, perhaps. It's part of the repertoire that we engage with as a personality. As that other level occurs, I'll give you an example. Walking down the street, you may or may not be paying attention to the energy around you, as I often say, behind you and in front of you and all around you. Or you might be doing the pump, of course. Or you might walk down the street with the balancing out here like this, trying to increase the flow around you so that you can let it go and let quiet be okay. And suddenly, you'll walk through a zone, maybe 25, 30 feet, and everything will be different. Be soft, gentle. And you won't be paying attention to anything, not even yourself. And you will notice the softness and the wondrousness of another state. In that moment, will affect you. If you can think of it as a moment that reassures you about the need to continue, keep meditating, keep engaging, try to bring a smile in from time to time. My gollies, that can be hard sometimes. Make yourself smile inside. Outside stuff, a bunch of laughter just to prove that you're really happy, doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but you may use it. It's a tool. Personality uses all kinds of tools. And use it, but don't fool yourself. Be honest with yourself. See why you're doing it. Watch the politicking. There's a lot of training in our world to be political about your personality so that you can be very, very, very much inundated by people liking you. The biggest difficulty you'll have to overcome eventually is that as you're growing, you will feel resented. You'll also feel as if every second of that growing is the most important thing you'll ever have in your life. You won't share it with a lot of people, if any. And that's the level of engagement that you'll begin to move to. Be okay with that. Sometimes growing is very lonely. That's just honest. Sometimes politicking is not lonely. Be okay and learn from you. Watch you. Be your friend, which means something quite different than being your ally. Now what happens? As you do these kinds of things, one thing you can do is you can practice being aware in front of you. In front of you is so easy. How can one become more interested in energy than in personality? When you're meditating, you remember that easy meditation that we used to do, and we often, many of us still do, is being aware above your head, saying a prayer or a mantra, being aware in the next section, the brow up, doing the same thing, the neck and the face, then the heart, and keep going down in sections, saying a prayer every time, or a mantra, all the way down to your feet in sections, just in sections. Follow the chakra sections down. And turn around, follow them back up again. Start to notice that you're softening down because your focus is on doing something different than validating yourself in the way you normally do. I don't care how it is, doesn't matter. I'm a great meditator, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. Turn the focus. Turn the focus. Let it go soft. Go into as quiet a moment as you possibly can. Each time you do these things. When you're walking in the street, practice. Be aware above your head and behind you. Front, sides. Walk, paying attention to that as opposed to your body. As we get older, you're going to have to pay attention to what's in front of you a little bit better. Give it a try. I mean, a lot of folks have done this. The Japanese are really, and the Chinese are very, very exceptional in this. Buddhists as well. Some Hindus have done this as well. Walking, Jainis sometimes. An old way of walking was to pay no attention to anything other than the energy around you and keep walking. Keep walking. Only pay attention to that energy around you. I know a lot of folks who did that made it really important. They would put a big face on and they would stiffen up and they would go like that. And they would notice people watching them and all the rest of that. It's not the one I'm talking about. If you do that, that's still a personality orientation. But you can only do things from your personality. So learning how to soften that down does not mean make extinct the personality. And that's a bit of a misnomer. People do get really mixed up about that. In the higher initiations, what begins to happen is if that energy becomes your buddy, your friend. In the Christian background, the soul element, of course. In Hermes, if you read Hermes, begins to talk to you. Not like, hey, you're doing the right things. Anything that comes into your mind is the only thing that's true. Not that kind of thing. As a matter of fact, and it doesn't even come in a negative sense. Hey, anything you're doing is really bad. No, that's you. That's your stuff. That's how you've constructed things. Both of them. So subtle. Just an idea comes into your head, but you've learned that in your head is room for not only you being everything that's in your head, but there's room in your beingness for the idea that a thought that comes into your mind is not necessarily from you. You learn that as the initiations get higher. Now, you don't learn it by rote, by memory. You learn it by experience. Is this like schizophrenia? No, it's not. You still are well-balanced, well-functional. You don't go out there and start talking to yourself, blah, 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 blah. It's more like there's an idea. I wonder how that fits with me. In other words, you're trying to teach yourself. You're being helped to teach, to be taught how to teach yourself. And thoughts are not always exactly how you would put them. In my case, in the early days, I would get all kinds of different languages. I had no idea, so I'd write them down phonically. I'd go searching them out, asking other people about them. And but it's just training, not good or bad, just stuff. Just treat it like another thing. I'm just wondering if I might have left something out, Marie Lou. Yeah, our biggest difficulty often is how we see ourselves, and we need to see ourselves that way or we believe we're not worthy. And that's very scary stuff because it's hard for us. And we can be misunderstood, or we can be, let's say, misperceived very easily. And we can also not understand much stuff when you're in that groove, in a self-defensive groove. I think most of the tools that we have can be helpful. You see, the difference between having something you can use and using them is very large in anything. If you did yoga, the same idea. If you did any kind of engagement with using anything that might be helpful, once you tend to think you know them, you don't use them as much. Because why would you do that? You did it once, or 10 times or whatever. Another thing that might be helpful, we have some DVDs out there, which you have, I'm sure, in your back pocket. If you have read them and or seen them once, and your relationship to them was, oh, I think I know that content, watch them, turn the sound off if you don't want to hear the sound of my voice, and engage with the energy in them, because that helps. If you can perceive energy in your relationship with your personality, whether it's harsh or negative or in the middle someplace, then use the energy. It will be helpful to you. Its transmission might be helpful to you. Try it out, see if it is. See if you can notice or pick up the energy that's going on when those DVDs are being expressed. Okay, I'm not sure what time it is. Hang on. 2:47. 2:47. Okay. There is another one. That Barbara asked. These questions are, not that they're exactly the same, but they have some similar content. It's often very interesting. I'll get 2 or 3, as we talked about last Thursday, and they'll be fairly close together. This one says, on January 11th, during the class, you said, we sanctify our attempt to be ideal. Could you talk more about that process? I think I talked a little about it in Mary Lou's question, in that we are very vulnerable in our relationship with life. We act out in a certain way, which kind of hides the vulnerability, not only from others, but from ourselves. And we like the idea of other people seeing us in a favorable view, as opposed to just a growing, learning person. See me in that last one, please, because I've got to tell you something. Every time you turn a corner and you grow more, you're introduced to another understanding of existence. To me, that is kind of flowery, but it is real. I would rather be in that level of engagement where I'm open to my next engagement with growing, as I'm sure you would like to be as well, rather than holding on to feeling that you're ideally, you've made it kind of thing. This is, you may laugh and think I'm a little silly saying those kinds of things, but nonetheless, unfortunately, this is a position in place that makes many of us exceedingly comfortable and very valuable in the eyes, unfortunately, of others, but very valuable in the eyes of ourselves. Really interesting. I remember I probably said this before, an old colleague and friend from England telling me, Ron, for heaven's sake, don't let people know that you're still growing. I said, why not? Everybody is, yourself included. He said, I know that, but they want to hear that you're almost perfect. And that makes them feel more secure because they've chosen an important thing to think about. If you could do something inside yourself, and I mean do, act, engage with you as a growing being, honestly, your growth will be different than what you ever consider viable as a growing process. I hope everybody heard that last part. Because you cannot anticipate the experience of growing. You can copy, you can mimic, you can read 1,000 books, but the actual experience of growing will take you unawares. It will shift you. It will help you in ways that will be disturbing to you. That higher state will engage with you to enable you to go farther rather than remain labeled as very valuable where you are or where you think you are, not where you truly are. Is there something negative about that? I don't think so. But personalities can find that. Anyway, he did warn me about that. And to some degree, I can understand that because, one thing that is important to recognize when you start assessing other people where you think they are, you're really defending yourself about how and where you think you are. This makes it difficult because you can't see that. If anyone gives you a hassle or implies something different about than what you've already figured out, it's difficult for the personality to allow. It will find strategic ways to mess that up. So in that case, going back to Mary Lou's question, you will be the person that will hold you in a position that you find highly important. And also that deals with the ideal of Barbara's question. Because growing is not a devaluation process. It's an open-ended process where you suddenly are okay seeing some stuff, but you're scared. I always heard men are nervous, others are scared. Baloney. Biggest fear that you have is not being accepted as how you think you are. So if you think you're superior, your biggest fear is not being considered superior. If you think you're miserable and you maintain that, your biggest fear is being considered not being miserable. It's a vulnerability that touches every single person on the planet. Every life. But do you have the courage to being okay was seeing it and having it shift. And then recognizing it inside, not having to forecast it or express it externally so that others know how important you are. Once over again, you still did the same thing as you did before, or once over again, you've just put yourself down. Same kind of ideal. It's not easy to engage with these kinds of things. But here's the thing. In both of these questions, here's the thing. Most fascinating. We grow in spite of it. Because there's something within us that really does want to grow. Really does. And also there's something within us that needs somebody to tell us we're growing. So if you need that, I can honestly say I know everyone is growing. I know that to be true. Not a joke. So when you express to yourself how miserable you are or how valuable you are because you are able to do this or that or the other thing, I know that's just an aspect of maintenance in relationship to tremendous vulnerability. And I understand that's difficult for any of us to handle. There was something I put down here before I thought. I was just saying, if we don't get a sense of worth from our parental or our growing background, we tend to be more vulnerable and tend to make up for that vulnerability within the personality construct ourselves, either positively or negatively. And most of us are in this level of unknowing. But one really important trick is to attempt. Success is over a long time. To attempt to soften the intensity that keeps you focused on the personality values and be honest with yourself and watch and see as you soften, because there is a softening that begins to occur. And that is through another question, partly, and I won't be doing that today, but next Thursday I will. Hope this is okay with you, Chris McLaughlin from Nashville. I'll be talking a little bit about the relationship that we have with a thing called grace. Many people talk about that stuff. I'll just do the best I can with it because she is interested in how that occurs within us. And we've been talking about grace in our process of learning and growing and starting to be okay with us as we are, but not necessarily agreeing with it all the time. We're about to do some meditating now, and I'd just like to say thank you for those who are sending in questions. Please send in more if you can. I'd like to keep this going all the way through February. And please take care, and we will meditate now.
Jagadambe Janani Namastasye 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 Namo Namaha Namastasye, 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 Namo Namaha. Sarvamangala-mangalye Shive sarvartha-sadhike Sharanye Triambake Devi Narayani Namos
Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding. And good evening, everybody.